I used to think that America was a third world country with a Gucci belt. But I have recently realized that I was wrong. America is not a third world country with a Gucci belt. America is a third world country with a fake Gucci belt. A Gucci belt from AliExpress, a Gucci belt from a kiosk in the middle of the mall. And it seems like with each passing day, more and more Americans are realizing this for themselves. Bearing that in mind, in this video, I will be reacting to a video from a homestead journey about how millions of Americans are living in third world conditions. So without further ado, let's get into this reaction.
You know how when we were growing up, the idea of living in a third world country seemed so far off. It seemed like something you would watch in a documentary or something that you'd read about. Now it just feels closer than ever because you go out into the cities and you see streets lined with tents. You see more and more people living in cars. You see people that can't afford food anymore.
Can confirm, I was once one of those people living in a car.
This is what our shitty ass healthcare has come to, where my patients need medicine and supplies and their insurance won't cover it, and here I am spending my own money because my patient needs it.
I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, props to her for spending her own money on her patient's medicine, but she should never have to do that. That is not her obligation. I don't know what her profession is, but I'm going to assume that if she is working in the healthcare system, she had to go to college for it. She had to get some type of higher education, which, as we know, in the US comes at a premium price. So not only is she having to pay these crazy, exorbitant, predatory student loans, because she still seems relatively young, so she's still paying those loans, best believe, but now she's also having to cover the cost of her patient's medicine? Make that make sense. That's almost as crazy. In fact, this is much crazier, but it's kind of similar to when I realized growing up that our teachers were out here starting GoFundMes in order to pay for some of our school supplies, in order to supply pencils and paper and things of that nature. Makes no sense in a country that's the self-proclaimed richest country on the planet.
And he doesn't have any money, and he can't work. And the insurance won't even cover what he needs.
What's the point of having insurance? What's the point of having insurance and paying hundreds of dollars a month if this is what it's coming to?
And I'm sad, and I'm sick and tired of it.
I'm about to be homeless in like 2 days. I don't want your pity, or I don't want you to feel bad for me. But what I would like is for anyone to know what it's like to live in your car, and maybe some essentials that I can pick up that's going to be super helpful. I already have like a little porta potty situation, but I'm thinking of like, I don't know, maybe some electrical things that I'll need for like charging stuff. I mean, I have car chargers, but like I really don't want to have my car like on the whole time while I'm...
Window covers and a gym membership. That will get you a very long way while living in a car. But again, this should not be necessary in the self-proclaimed richest country on the planet. And every time you hear me say richest country on the planet in any of my videos, you always see me use those air quotes, is because I've come to realize that America is not the richest country on the planet. It's the country that has some of the richest people. Very big difference there.
Doing it, I think my car charges while it's off. Any essentials that you think I might need, anything that will be helpful, even any places that I can go and like park to be safe. I am in California, so if you know the area, specifically Bay Area, that would be helpful. I'm gonna get a gym membership so I can...
She said she's in the Bay Area. Something you might not know about the Bay Area specifically if you're not from the US, or even if you are from the US but outside of the Bay Area, is that they have a very big issue with car break-ins. As a matter of fact, my girlfriend could attest to this, but on the way here to Thailand, we had a layover in San Francisco, and I decided to rent a car so that we could drive around and just explore a little bit because we hadn't been there before. And while I was at the car rental place, the guy was asking me, do you have your luggage with you? Okay, make sure you put your luggage in the trunk, and if you go to any of these areas right here, then make sure you don't leave anything in the car, absolutely nothing. And I looked at the paper that he was showing me, and it was literally the whole entire area. The whole area was all subject to car break-ins. So that seems like absolute hell, and my heart goes out to her.
Shower and all that stuff. Any places not to go, any don'ts that you can offer, let me know. But I'm a woman, so I just want to feel safe. I want to feel comfortable. Obviously, I'm outside, so. But like, and I was already thinking about getting some like window covers so that way people can't see in at night. But yeah, I'm in California. If you have any tips, please leave them in the comments.
I'm an American. I pay $1,600 for a flat that has no bedroom. That's 2/3 of my income. I'm an American. I work 50 hours a week. I don't have health insurance. I'm an American. I couldn't afford to have a child even if I wanted to.
Wait, hold on. I'm still stuck on the $1,600 a month for a flat that doesn't have a bedroom. I don't know where she lives. I do know that those rent prices are looking pretty spooky in most of the US. In fact, I remember before I left my apartment in the US to go live in my car, I was notified by the landlord that the rent was going to go up. And at the time, that was simply not feasible for me. And that played a big role in my decision to terminate that lease and move into my car.
I'm $7,000 in debt. I'm an American. My health is declining because I can't afford Whole Foods because that's too expensive for my life. I am very overqualified for my job, but no one else is hiring. I'm an American. I make my boss hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, while I can barely keep myself alive. I'm an American. I have never been out of the States. I have never been on a vacation. I'm an American. I make 20-some dollars an hour.
That point that she just made about having never been outside of the States or having never been on a vacation, that's a big problem right there. That's one of the biggest issues that Americans currently have, and that's why I make the content I do, is to hopefully bridge the gap between what Americans like her do and don't know about the rest of the world. Because people just don't know what the rest of the world has to offer because they don't have a chance to go and see it because they don't have the money or the time. I mean, it should be almost impossible to be working 50 hours a week and still be struggling to the extent that you can't have health insurance. And yet many Americans, clearly, based on how many likes her post has, resonate with her situation.
A livable wage here is like 30-some, yet I don't qualify for government assistance whatsoever. On the days I don't work, I'm so tired I just sleep all day. I'm an American. My electric bill is so expensive I sit outside in the heat because I can't afford to turn the AC on in the damn house. I'm an American, and I fear I'm just an average American. I'm living the American dream.
The extraordinarily wealthy in this country, I don't think have ever experienced being at a counter at the grocery store trying to figure out, can the $40 I have left in my checking account until Friday get me this gallon of milk for my kid, fill my gas tank to get to work, and give my kid lunch money, because you don't want them to feel the pain.
And you know what's one of the coldest parts about what she just mentioned? Is that in most grocery stores in the US, when you go and get that gallon of milk, or you, let's say for example, buy bread and buy other groceries to prepare your kids' lunch, you don't actually know how much the stuff costs because they're showing you the price before taxes, which is cruel. Imagine you get the food and stuff, you get to the register just to realize that after tax, you actually can't afford it all. A lot of people go through that.
And get the gallon of milk and the bread and the deli meat. Can it do all of that? Because the $40 really can't. And you as the parent know that. And yet, a lot of these people will think you're lazy we'll just work harder. And these people are already maxed out. They already have a master's degree.
And on the topic of children's lunches, I just remembered something that kind of pissed me off all over again. I remember growing up at school, if you didn't have enough money to purchase your lunch, they would literally take your tray away and they would hand you a cheese sandwich. Now, I'm well aware that in the Netherlands and perhaps some other European countries, a cheese sandwich is actually a normal lunch. But the point is, it's embarrassing to allow children to literally stack their trays up with all this other stuff under the pretense that they can just get it because they don't know how much money is on their lunch account. They don't have access to that. Only to get to the counter where they scan their card or whatever. Usually you have a little lunch card that you scan, your ID card for school, because you have to have an ID card because of school shootings and stuff. But you scan that card and then they tell you, oh, you can't afford this. They take the tray away, probably throw the food away, and then they hand you a cheese sandwich. So embarrassing. And I saw that happen to people many, many times growing up.
They have more education than those other people who say, we'll just work harder.
You know, y'all, I just saw something that touched my heart. I just saw a mom hooked up to a machine who states that she is giving her plasma in exchange for money to be able to afford her children's school clothes and supplies. A mom is giving plasma. This is what's happening in the USA.
Where is the wealth? It's the wealthiest country on the planet, the richest country on the planet. Where? Where is it? Because I don't see it. I'm not seeing it throughout this video.
And I just want to say, as a former single mom myself, who was once a homeless single mom, I know how hard single moms work to provide for their children. I am absolutely praying for single moms out there. But I also want to add this. There are a lot of single moms who are finding that it is better to move abroad as it relates to affordability. There are many countries out there where you can go and you will find that the cost of living is a lot less than America.
Almost every country, actually. The only country I've been to that had a comparable cost of living was Switzerland. And the quality of life is so much better in Switzerland than the US that it's not even worth comparing. But even here in Thailand, the quality of life is honestly fairly comparable. It's fairly comparable, but when you consider the cost of living here relative to the quality of life, again, it's not even a discussion. Hence why I'm filming this video in Thailand and not the USA.
I was thinking about this. We are the richest country on the planet, one of the richest countries. Why does it look like ass? Like, really think about that for a second. Like, when you're driving, if you're not in like Florida or California or the coast of like Oregon or whatever, it's like, this place looks like shit.
No, California looks bad too. California looks really bad. The roads are bad. Everything looks run down. I would almost say California has it worse than a lot of other states. But my girlfriend and I, we actually drove across the US multiple times while we were there earlier this year. And we kind of came to that same conclusion that the US is very, very underwhelming when it comes to infrastructure. That's why when I went to Europe for the first time, I literally couldn't even process what I was seeing because I didn't know that was possible.
And we have so much money. Like, I'm thinking of like Europe and Japan and all the architecture like across the world and how beautiful it looks. Why don't we have like rose gold buildings and like, why does the Kmart's and like all of the stores look like shit? Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking in my head, I'm closing my eyes and I can imagine like what a country, like look at China. Like,
so she's speaking more in terms of the aesthetic value, which, to be fair, that's personal preference. Some people might like the US architecture. I wouldn't really fall into that group. But the infrastructure itself, the basic infrastructure, the traffic lights, the roads, the streets, the lack of sidewalks, even the condition of the buildings, all of that is inferior to what I saw in Europe. All of it. And again, it makes me wonder, where is the wealth? And I think, and this is just my personal prediction, so in 5 or 10 years, you can either call me Nostradamus or you can call me stupid. But I predict that a lot of America's wealthy people are actually going to leave in the next 5 to 10 years. Because the people on the mountaintop always have the best view of what's coming. So in other words, the people who have the wealth, they can see what's about to happen and they are getting on their lifeboats.
Like Shanghai, like the coast, like all those videos you see, that's like no joke, stunning, beautiful, high tech. You would think America would look like that with the amount of money that we have, but it just looks like, ugh, you know what I mean?
You want to see something disgusting? I just did a little bit of grocery shopping. Let me look, hang on. $106.70 for that.
And he got all junk food too. That's a frozen pizza, 2 bags of Doritos. He got junk food. Junk food is cheaper than healthy food in the US. All of this food right here. All of this for 22 euros. I'm not coming back. This is why people are eating fast food and stuff like this, is because if that's how much this stuff costs right here, imagine going to a place like Whole Foods Market or Sprouts that actually have the organic produce. Think about how much you're spending at places like that. As a matter of fact, I'll save you the trouble. My grocery bill going to those places in 2022 was always over $100. Whereas when I would shop at Walmart or Target, it'd be closer to $60 a week for just myself. But that was eating exclusively frozen food and things of that nature.
I remember when I used to pay $60 for a bag. That's crazy.
I don't know about you, but I miss being like regular sad about the world and not like catastrophically horrified every day by the world. Just me?
You just don't want to admit it.
The world or the US? Because personally, being here in Thailand, I feel great. When I was in the Netherlands, I felt great. It's really only when I went back to the US that I felt that tension and that disdain and that disillusionment.
But van life equals housing crisis. This isn't a vibe, and this is not freedom. This is what happens when housing collapses and survival becomes illegal. Millions of us are being pushed to live into
Someone take that knife away from her. Don't ever let somebody who's mad chop something like that.
vehicles just to survive. And cities are treating us like shit. And for most of us, van life is the last resort.
She made a really good point there as well. Cities do not welcome van lifers or car dwellers. That is a whole thing right there. Living in a car, depending on your tolerance for difficulty and Spartan-like conditions, isn't actually as bad as you would think it is. And I'm speaking from my own experience of having done this for multiple months in a row. The biggest issue with living in a car was the fact that oftentimes it's illegal to do so. So in a place like LA, for example, most parking lots, you're technically not allowed to sleep in a car. In fact, most jurisdictions, most cities make it illegal to sleep in a car. So even if a business allows you to do it, they can be overruled by the city's laws. And that makes it incredibly stressful to sleep while living in a car. And go a few months without good sleep and see how you feel mentally.
And we're being hunted for it.
So I see a whole bunch of people, I don't know if they're real or not, that's why I'm not going to pull the comments, talking about becoming homeless or houseless, however you want to identify it as, and how they're going to choose hospital parking lots because it's safer. And I just want to put this into perspective as a woman in her 50s who lives in an off-road vehicle. You need to throw this ideology of I need to stay safe out the window. because there is absolutely nothing safe about living in a vehicle. Ever.
That's true. That's true. I know I sound like I'm rambling here, but if you've never lived in a car, again, the biggest issue that I came across was finding a good place to sleep. Because if you sleep in a safe neighborhood, oftentimes you have a lot of police patrolling that neighborhood, and the people who live in that neighborhood tend to be more vigilant. So when they see an unfamiliar car with dark windows, they're going to call the police. And the police in that area probably have nothing better to do, so they're going to investigate and they're going to get you up out of there. But if you sleep in a place where those aren't potential issues, now you're in a place where you have actual danger to worry about. You have criminals trying to break into your car. You heard me mention the car break-ins in San Francisco. Look this up for yourself. You cannot leave anything in your car at all. They will break in your car while you're still in there. They don't care at all. Very, very stressful to deal with. And that's something I do not miss at all.
First of all, the weather. It's about to be over 100 degrees, which means it's going to be probably about 110 in your vehicle. And since most homeless people have a problem with detachment, you're probably hoarding as much stuff as you can from your old life in that vehicle, giving you even less space to live and to breathe. So that is probably the last thing you need to worry about, is where can I sleep that's safe? You need to worry about your health. You need to worry about how are you going to stay hydrated, how are you going to exercise, and how are you going to give yourself the quality of life you deserve? Because just because you're living in your car does not mean you don't deserve things. And if I can tell you one thing you need to master, it is going to be the art of detachment and get rid of all that shit in your car. You don't need it. It doesn't serve you. You're holding on to a life that no longer exists.
You know what's the craziest thing? A lot of people don't realize that if they just sold their car and they sold all the stuff in it, they could book a flight to a place like Thailand or Vietnam, get an apartment, and actually live for less money in an apartment than they would in their car in the US. And I'm not just saying this just to say it, I'm speaking from actual experience of having done it. This right here, being in this Airbnb and getting the food that I get, is a lot cheaper than living in a car in the US.
Get rid of it. It's holding you down. It is going to be so hot. You have no idea what it is like to be homeless when it is hot. So if you want to think about safety, I highly suggest you start thinking about where you're going to live near water and with cooler temperatures. Because driving around the city you became homeless in is a trauma loop. And going from hospital parking lot to hospital parking lot, that's not safety. You're a moving target. That's what you are. And I don't know if a lot of you are in the understanding that being homeless is pretty much a crime in almost every state. Whether it's a crime or not, you are shunned, you are looked down on, the police give you problems, and nobody likes the homeless. So when it comes to, oh, I just want to feel safe, I'm a single woman and living in my car, nobody gives a you are now homeless.
Imagine how much worse it is for men in the societal regard. People don't have any sympathy for women living in their cars, so imagine how it is for a man living in their car. I know how that is. I saw my whole audience at that time on this YouTube channel turn on me. I still remember how that felt, and I carry that with me to this day. I am honestly not the same person because of it.
So this is America 2025. For millions of people, they feel like they follow the rules, they work hard, yet they still can't afford anything. And for many, many people, they're one emergency away from losing everything because you don't have a savings, you don't have a safety net, you're drowning in debt. What can you do? A lot of people don't know what to do.
So we all know that this economy has gotten really expensive. And I'm just curious. I will tell you what I've redone in my current everyday life. I'm just curious what you've done. So for me, I don't eat out. I haven't eaten out in 5 years. I cook everything from scratch. I have a garden. Now, I had the garden before this administration, but I doubled it this year so that I had more variety and more things to preserve to try to lower costs at the grocery store. I went to my doctor and had them put all of my medications to generics. They don't necessarily always work as well, but I decided I had to do something because my out-of-pocket for my meds was around $1,000 every 3 months.
1,000 every 3 months out of pocket. I don't know what her insurance is per month, but we can reasonably assume it's probably 150 to 200 plus per month. Plus 1,000 every 3 months? I have no words.
And I had to lower that. So I did that. I did that in February. And then I don't go anywhere for vacations. I do staycations because it's just not, I'm not outputting any money right now. I'm trying to pay off all my bills. So I'm limiting trips. So I try to plan ahead and plan my entire month. So I'm only going 1 day a month to the stores. I do have the luxury of working from home. So that is, I know not everybody has that, but I'm trying to less.
If she's working from home, she's playing the game completely wrong. She needs to go overseas. That's what she needs to do. She's talking about growing a garden and going to the store once a month. She needs to go overseas. That's the answer.
And my gas usage, lessen the times that I go places, or if I try to go to places that are closer to home so that I keep that cost down. I have animals. I have 2 chows, and those 2 chows, I went through all of the things that I annually did at the vet and determined which one I thought was a risk and which one I thought wasn't. And a couple of their annual vaccinations I decided I didn't need to do. One is the kennel cough. We don't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere besides this house. They're not going to get it from each other because it's exposure to other animals, and we don't go anywhere. Lepto, which is standing water issues. I didn't see that as a need because, again, we don't go anywhere. We live here and there's no standing water in my backyard. So there are things that I did to downsize and redo my costs, trying to deal with this. But I'm curious. I know a lot of you are struggling.
I'm sorry, I can't. She needs to take those dogs to the vet and get those vaccinations done. There's no excuse for not getting that done. I empathize with her situation. I get where she's coming from, but those dogs did not ask for that. They did not ask to be in this situation. She needs to take them to the vet.
I'm just curious what you've done to change the way you do things to try to address the rising costs.
Unfortunately, the standard of living is falling for many people here in the United States. And for those of you that are fortunate enough right now to make some changes, to save money, to put food away for a rainy day, to downsize while you can, to try and store up some provisions for future hard times, to think about the idea of what...
This is the second time across the videos I've reacted to from her that I've heard her mention storing provisions and accumulating food and things like that, stockpiling. If that is the type of conversation that you're having with yourself, you need to leave. You need to get up out of there because you gain nothing from staying in a position where you're having to do that. If you have enough money to store a stockpile of food, then you have enough money to book a flight anywhere else other than where you currently are.
But if you lose your job, start thinking of some backup plans, move in with family if you can. For those of you that are starting to do those things, good for you. If you have extra money, think about storing your money in forms of assets because that is going to save you later on. And something to keep in mind, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So really think about that with where you are storing your money, if you're looking into different assets and things like that. So hope this video has opened your eyes to...
So I'm no financial advisor, so take this with a grain of salt. But I would actually advise people, if they wanted my advice on this, to keep enough liquid money or to keep their money in high liquidity investments because this is a very dynamic situation. Again, the people who have a lot of money, they already know what's coming and they're leaving. They're getting up out of the US. But the people who are worried about these kinds of things, they don't have that same vantage point. So you want to have flexibility. You want to be able to move at the drop of a hat, literally and figuratively. You want to be able to operate as soon as you come across new information. And again, the whole purpose of this channel is to provide new information.